So for the movie analysis project, our group chose to do Squid Game, which is a series currently airing on Netflix. And a brief intro into what Squid Game is. It is set in South Korea, what is presumably the modern day. And the basic premise of the show is that the Squid Game is a sadistic game show in which players engage in games from their childhood, but if they lose the games, they're eliminated. And in the context of Squid Game, that means that they are killed. However, all of the players are in crippling debt, which is why they agree to continue playing. And each time a player dies, the cash incentives offered go up. And it focuses on the tragedy and betrayal involved in relationships when it's such high stakes. So a brief introduction to the characters. Gi-hun is the main character, and most of the relationships in Squid Game are sort of centered around him. Sa-byuk is an escapee from North Korea, and prior to the Squid Game beginning, had robbed Gi-hun. Then there is Song-woo, who is Gi-hun's childhood best friend, and who he runs into again during the game, not expecting to see him there. Oh-il-nam is an old man who Gi-hun meets in the bunker prior to the game starting. And Ali Abdul is an Arabic immigrant to South Korea who saves Gi-hun's life during the first game, red light, green light, by grabbing him before he can fall during the red light, in which he would be eliminated. So that's the basic introduction into what this is, and we'll elaborate further on the dynamics and analysis with the relationships and how primary tension, secondary tension, and all of that plays into how Squid Game unfolds.
So the dynamics we will be using for our small group in Squid Game is primary tension and secondary tension. Primary tension is when a group first comes together and they have anxiety, they're nervous, there's a little bit of tension going on. Those feelings really differentiate between the group themselves, but usually it's just you're just nervous and you don't know how to feel, and you're uncertain on how to behave when you first join a group. What secondary tension is down the line when you finally become a group, there is going to be a conflict between a group, meaning it can be a difference between opinions, ideals, how the system of the group works, the positions of the group mates. Someone might be a leader, but another group member might be the leader, so they might argue for it or fight for it. It depends on the group at hand, or it can mean there's a disagreement about the task at hand. We will be going through examples of how these tensions appear in our small group in Squid Game right after these slides.
First example of the primary tension that occurred was after the second game. It was time to eat, and there was only enough food for everyone to take one meal each. The small group took seconds. This caused a fight, which led to one of the contenders getting killed over not having food. This caused the prize money to rise, which sparked the idea in the other group's minds to murder the other contestants in hopes that the game would end sooner. Our group forms here. Not everyone trusts each other in the beginning, thinking they'll be betrayed, but everything goes according to plan as they survive the attack in the night. Second example takes place further in the series. And the stakes and requirements of survival change. The true morals, personalities, and opinions show when their hearts and minds are pushed to the absolute limit. Gi-hun's mentality shows life of his friends is more important than the prize money, and that he cares about the other members in the group, hoping that they will make it out alive as well. While Sang-woo shows more than once towards the end of the series, he is willing to step over his friends to achieve survival and to win the prize money. While older Ali is willing to sacrifice his success and chances of walking away in an attempt to bring his friends out alive.
All right, now we're going to analyze dynamics. We're going to start with primary tension. Primary tension goes through something called an orientation phase when it comes to small groups. What this means is that small groups will go through something like breaking the ice, learning each other's names, setting rules and norms for the groups, for the group members, and trying to understand why they're grouping up and forming a team in the first place. In our case, Squid Game, Jihan and the others form a group because a contestant is murdered, and the other contestants in the game show seems as a way to hurry up and speed up the process of trying to win the game, by killing each other and just trying to skip the games. So what Jihan does is forms a group so they can all try to survive as a small group. And this is where we see the orientation phase come into play. Jihan says that everyone should tell each other their names to build some trust, form a little night watch routine where two people would watch and guard the group that's sleeping, and they'll just keep on rotating throughout the night. This does build trust with the group, and we see that another way we see the orientation phase here is that Jihan will vouch for Sung-woo by saying he's a genius, he's a top, he graduated from a top university, he's a hero in the neighborhood, and this basically gives everyone a hope and a reason and incentive to join their group, because they'll see this as it gives them a hope that they'll have a high chance to survive, because Jihan and Sung-woo are saying they played multiple kid games and a lot of them growing up, so they can try to figure out what the game they're going to play is next before they get to it and try to build up a strategy and plan, giving everyone a reason and a benefit as to why they should team up. And this is where we see orientation in our dynamic, or this is how we see the orientation phase in our dynamic primary tension. Next, we got analyzing secondary tension. In Squid Game, when you analyze our dynamic secondary tension, when it comes to Squid Game, you'll see that it goes to something like the conflict phase. And what that is when the small group, in between the small groups members, they'll go through a conflict with their beliefs, ideals, preference, opinions, between each other. And we see this a few times throughout Squid Games. Like, for example, when Sung-woo and Ali is playing the marbles game, Ali has his idea of Sung-woo that Sung-woo is gonna get me out of this game where we're both gonna make it out alive. He thinks that they're gonna make it out together, but Sung-woo is really just in it for himself, and he sees Ali as a way to just hurry up and survive on his own. He switches Ali's marbles for rocks, so Ali dies. And we see this again when they're playing a glass panel bridge game where they have to cross a bridge filled with glass panels. Some break, some don't. Sung-woo has a contestant in front of him. Jihan and Say Bayak, the rest of the survivors of their small group from the beginning of the show. Sung-woo has a contender in front of him, and he pushes him forward so he can fall and reveal which glass panel is sturdy enough to walk on. This is when Jihan and Say Bayak see Sung-woo true colors. And at this point, the whole group's opinions for each other is thrown out the window. And this is when we basically see the conflict phase at full throttle. All opinions for the group are just completely gone as to where they thought they was in it together to win. They basically see that Sung-woo was kind of just faking it the whole time, where they once thought he was sort of like a leader figure. They basically just now see him as a traitor, and that All trust is gone. They all think they're all out to kill each other. It's basically a free for all, every man for himself. And throughout the for the rest of the show, we see the conflict phase with secondary tension. But yeah, that's basically what you'll see when you analyze the dynamics, primary and secondary tension when it comes to Squid Game.
So, was this dynamic effective? In the very beginning, it was effective because it helped them progress to stages that they wouldn't have gotten to by themselves. As a group, they were more effective in winning the games. But this served as an icebreaker. It allowed them to stay in their comfort, like primary tension, allowed them to stay in their comfort zones and basically wait until someone proved to them that they're on their side and they're not going to hurt them. But this only failed once the fourth game came along and they were told to pick their partner to play with. And at the very last minute, they were told that they were against their partner. So they all chose their friends thinking that they were going to be against somebody else, and they weren't. They were against them. The team was put against each other. So was this dynamic ineffective? In the end, yes, it was very ineffective. It ended up tearing apart the entire group. The reason that this group failed, secondary tension showed the true opinions and sides and like where everybody's loyalty lied. Especially Songwoo's, because he manipulated Ollie and killed people he basically showed that he was willing to step over anybody in order to survive. That's basically what happened. And then what could have been done to make this group more effective? Really nothing, because no one could have seen that a situation like this was going to happen. If they were not put against each other, these sides of people probably wouldn't have been seen. But after that fourth game, it basically showed that Jihoon and Songwoo were on complete different sides of the spectrum for morale, and no one wanted to be a part of Songwoo's team anymore.